Welcome to episode 26 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Errand of Mercy.
In this week's episode, as war breaks out between the Federation and the Klingon Empire, Kirk and Spock attempt to subvert efforts by this new and dangerous enemy using guerrilla tactics, to the concern of their hosts. Can their tactics succeed? Or will the Klingons strike the first blow in the escalating conflict?
You, Captain, will pass as an Organian, and Mr. Spock presents a problem.
Hey, hi Johnny, how you doing?
Okay, you present a problem.
Every week.
Yeah, in more ways than one.
Mostly when you're editing.
Let's try be on our very best behaviour tonight then.
Keep it under 3 hours for the recording.
Oof, if only. The stuff I have to get rid of. So, some people say it'd be gold.
The outtakes would be longer than the actual show.
Fool's gold.
Yeah. A classic villain.
Yes, I recognised this lot, certainly.
You did?
Yeah. Well,
that's good.
Recognised the names, obviously.
Were you interest peaked when they mentioned them in the opening scene, or had you been tipped off?
I did sort of spoil it for myself. I looked at IMDb before we got started, so I knew what was coming up. But I was still pleased to see them.
Yeah?
Felt familiar.
That's good. Did they surprise you in any way?
A little bit. I think that Kur,
he calls himself.
Kur. I think his attitude, I thought he'd be more aggressive. He was quite respectful. And I've seen this before with Kirk. I think he saw him as a worthy adversary. A
bit like with Kirk and Khan.
Yeah.
Were you in any way frustrated by the superior beings trope returning for at least the 5th time?
Not so much frustrated. I felt vindicated.
Okay.
In this episode. I've been saying for a number of weeks that I wasn't happy with Kirk and the Enterprise's imposing of their own standards and values on other cultures, and they tried to do it again this week. Now, in fairness, it was, as they saw it, in their best interest, but nonetheless, again, they were at it. They were trying to change a civilization and dismissing, contentment.
Yeah, but to be fair on this occasion,
progress.
They also had military goals in mind. It wasn't just that.
Yeah, sure, that's what I'm saying. There is I can accept it slightly more this week, but the principle remains, and I think it was good to see Kirk get his comeuppance. He had to accept. We'll get to it in more detail, but during this, he was arguing what I've been arguing in the past, that it's their decision. You can't just make us. They can't tell us how to have a war or what's best for us. It should be within our control, and they're told no. We would disagree. We're overruling that, and it was good to see that.
You thought?
Yeah. I was saying to myself, yeah, now you know how it feels, Kirky boy.
Hey, I
told you.
Shall we get into it?
Why not? Let's crack on. A bridge beginning. I like that. I like it when it starts in the bridge and ends in the bridge.
Familiar.
Bookended, yes.
Yeah. Kirk is receiving a coded message from Starfleet.
Tell me about that.
It appears that the Federation is on the brink of war with the Klingon Empire. So the orders for the Enterprise are to proceed to a planet called Organia, which is strategically important. Prevent the Klingons from using it as a base. Yeah,
we hear that negotiations with these Klingons have broken down and a surprise attack is anticipated. Now, surely, by definition, that's not a surprise attack.
Well, they're anticipating an attack. They don't know where or when it will be, so some elements are surprising.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Spock thinks that this is sound strategy. Yeah,
I think he describes it as the only Class M planet in the area. Do we know what a Class M planet is?
It's got a breathable, or an atmosphere that's breathable for humans.
Okay. So what does the M stand for?
Don't know. I think it's just the categorization.
Man. Class man. And also, it is apparently inhabited
by Belgians.
By a primitive, peaceful race of humanoids that rank as Class D cultures. Now, do we know what are the classes of cultures?
They're like Belgians.
Yeah.
And Armenians. So if you think about them,
very racist.
Lower forms of life.
I'm sure the Dutch agree.
That's what Kirk has to say anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought, yes, there's Federation obviously goes around classing folk by how advanced they are. I would imagine there's probably checkpoints on. It's not just a case of you guys seem a bit stupid. It's more like, have they achieved space flight? Have they achieved faster than light travel? That sort of thing, rather than just your clothes look a bit shabby, you're going to put you in class D.
Have they achieved levels of Van Damness or Poirotism or chocolatierism or In Bruges?
Okay.
It's a good movie.
Never seen it on my list. I think I've mentioned this before.
You should see it.
I should.
One of my favourites. Top 20, I'd say.
Okay.
Anyhow, where were we?
Kirk's just describing these people as weak innocents who always seem to be located on the natural invasion routes.
At this, Sulu warns that something is approaching and that the automatic deflector shields are being raised. But before anything else can be said, what happens?
They are hit by some kind of weapons fire.
Yeah, it sends them tumbling and shocks ripple throughout the ship, followed by several more.
Yes, and the Enterprise returns fire.
It does, and after a volley back and forth, Spock claims that they have hurt the enemy, and Sulu confirms that it no longer registered on his scanner, on his radar.
Did you accept that it had been destroyed, or were you thinking back to Balance of Terror with the ships that hide?
I was thinking that myself, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
No, but apparently, only debris.
Yep, they've gone. But there's a new message from Starfleet, which Uhura reads out.
Tell me about that.
War has broken out, and they are to proceed to Organia with their mission to be carried out.
Yeah, it's a command, a code 1.
Yes.
What's a code 1 then?
War.
War. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Uh-oh, code 1.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think we get the credits at this point.
We do. Followed by Captain's Log 3198.4. They are now in Organia's orbit, but there's no sign of trouble. Everyone seems quite peaceful.
For now.
Which is good.
Uhura reports that there are Klingons on the starboard bow.
Yeah, there you go. A fleet of them in another sector, and so Sulu is told to have phaser crews at the ready and keep the deflectors at full power.
Yes, Kirk and Spock are heading down to the surface, and Sulu is taking command.
Now, I've got a question about this, because we've seen Scotty.
Yes.
Put in. I would have thought there would have been a hierarchy. It's not like oh, it's just your turn this week. Surely it's Kirk, it's Spock, and then you have an order.
Yes.
Him, and if he's not, it's her or whatever.
It should have been Scotty, but it could be that he's off duty,
or they can't afford him.
They can't afford him this week's episode. Well, we'll get to that.
Will we?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that did stick out. It's like who wants a shot? Me. Sulu, you're not really.
I would imagine it's more that he's the senior officer on shift rather than that he's next in command. Scotty.
Yeah, but when you say on shift, it's not like he's having a long lie. If they're under attack, you get them, you wake them up, or you bring them back you bring them onto shift.
Or it could well be that they feel he's needed in engineering, where his expertise is.
Sure.
For whatever reasons, if they've got issues there.
Yeah. In any case, Spock and Kirk are beaming down.
Yes, and Sulu is to get out of there if a fleet approaches.
Yeah, he's told under no circumstances engage. Run.
He's like, but. And they're like, no.
Nope.
Down on the surface.
They materialise beside the city walls and are astonished that the local peasant types don't blink.
Yeah, they don't care.
No. At their sudden appearance from the sky.
Spock immediately notes that there's a ruined fortress which is inconsistent with what he has learned about their culture.
Yeah, he needs to learn a bit more, I think.
Apparently his books are out of date.
However, they are welcomed by an older man named Eilborn, and after they are introduced, he tells them that there is no authority on the planet, but he is the chair of the Council of Elders. So they want to talk to him about the imminent danger that they apparently face.
Well, Kirk does. Spock wants to wander off and make some studies.
Yeah.
Which is agreed by all concerned.
That's fine, yeah. We are now in the council chambers, and with 2 other elders in attendance. Is it 2 or 3?
At least 2. I thought there was maybe 4 in total.
Maybe. With some other elders in attendance, Kirk briefs them on the dangers that they face and why he and Spock are there.
Gentlemen, my government has informed me that the Klingons are expected to move against your planet with the objective of making it a base of operation against the Federation. My mission, frankly, is to keep them from doing it.
What you're saying, Captain, is that we seem to have a choice between dealing with you or your enemies.
No, sir. With the Federation, you have a choice. You have none with the Klingons. The Klingons are a military dictatorship. War is their way of life. life under the Klingon rule would be very unpleasant. We offer you protection.
We thank you for your altruistic offer, Captain, but we really do not need your protection.
We are a simple people, Captain. We have nothing that anybody could want.
We have this planet and its strategic location. I assure you that if you don't take action to prevent it, the Klingons will move against you just as surely as your sun rises. We will help you build defenses, build facilities.
We have no defenses, Captain, nor are any needed.
Gentlemen, I have seen what the Klingons do to planets like yours. They are organized into vast slave labor camps. No freedoms whatsoever. Your goods will be confiscated. Hostages taken and killed. Your leaders confined. You'd be far better off on a penal planet. Infinitely better off.
Captain, we see that your concern is genuine, and we are moved. But again, we assure you that we are in absolutely no danger. If anybody is in danger, you are. And that concerns us greatly. It would be better if you returned to your ship as soon as possible.
You keep insisting that there's no danger. I keep assuring you that there is. Would you mind telling me?
It is our way of life, Captain.
That's the first thing that would be lost.
The Organians are being deliberately vague here.
Yes.
They could just say to him, look, we're superior beings. We're only taking these physical forms to make you comfortable. We don't need to worry about people like Klingons. And Kirk would be like, oh, okay.
But perhaps it's not something that they want widely known. So
Well,
they're keeping that a secret for as long as
Then
possible.
what do they expect Kirk to do? Just accept, all right, okay, yeah, you say you're fine, so you must be fine. Without any evidence to
Why,
suggest
that's what I'm
the
saying.
case.
Why not? They're saying this is our planet and we're cool. You can just go away. We're fine.
He can't go away. He's got orders to secure the planet and stop the Klingons from using it.
Who has control over this planet?
It's in disputed territory between the Federation and the Klingon Empire.
Yeah, so they should say, well, I don't care what your orders are. This is our planet. Go away. We're fine. Again, this is them using military force. No, we need this territory, this strategic piece of land, this planet.
Well, it's not that they need it. They
taking
need to stop the Klingons having it.
Yeah,
It's not that they want it particularly for themselves.
sure. Anyway, although exasperated at their relaxed attitude, Kirk tries to remain calm and apologises for his energetic appeal. They thank him but ask him to leave whilst they discuss his proposition.
Yeah, Spock shows up and says that they are even more primitive people than he had realised.
Yeah, their previous information was garbage.
Yes, not only is this civilization many years behind, it's also not progressing.
Yeah. Simpletons, barbarians, we should just take it. We can do what we like here. We can bully this mob.
Spock's not using his
Brain?
well, he thinks he's using his brain, but he's not really taking in all the factors.
No. It also confused me here. He says they're not a primitive society. It's just that no progress has been made in tens of thousands of years. But surely that is what...
He's not saying they're not primitive. He says they're not primitive but making progress. They are stagnant.
Right, okay. So, with this knowledge, Kirk approaches the elders, whose opinion has not been altered, and they decline the offer of help.
Yeah, not for the last time in the episode. Aelborn tells Kirk that he simply does not understand them.
Yeah. I mean, I do appreciate what you're saying, that he could give them more information, but how would that change things? Okay, so you asked that question. Maybe they're so advanced that they know simply by saying, listen, see, it's the position of this planet, isn't it? It's not. They're not after the resources or the people. So even if he to say, listen, we're just effectively spirit beings or whatever, doesn't change the fact that the Enterprise needs to control the position.
Yeah.
So maybe they know that. There's no point in arguing. It won't change it.
Maybe. They certainly seem to have some degree of foresight, as we're about to find out, because one of the council members talks about Klingons beaming down just as Kirk is learning from Sulu that their fleet has arrived.
Is that after Kirk? I mean, there's a point here where Kirk is really sort of patronising. He says that they'll be able to teach them how to feed more people and educate their young and make the world a better place.
Feed 1,000 people where they had fed one before.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Come on,
it's that sort of attitude that you're always in the right and you can always help people improve. But it's not just,
it reminds me a little bit of Comic Relief.
Yeah, okay, controversial. But there is...
you know what I mean? These white celebrities go to Africa to fix everything. That's not the way to do things.
I mean, that's an attitude that has in the last year or so, a couple of years, been changing in terms of...
Yeah, well, hopefully Kirk will learn as well.
I don't think he will. He's not learned so far. Well, maybe this is the the episodes where he does learn just not to get involved and he's not always right.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, so that's the thing that Elborn responded to by saying that he doesn't understand them, which is what I'd touched on.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, Sulu gets in touch to say the Klingon fleet's arrived.
And Kirk reminds him of his orders to scram.
Yes, and meanwhile, one of the Organian council members reports that Klingons are beaming down.
Is that Trefane?
I don't know, one of them.
Okay. Yeah, there's 8 vessels in orbit.
Yes, Spock says to Kirk that they don't have any readings to confirm that, but it seems like a logical continuation.
Yeah, so this is maybe the first indication that they have powers greater than what the Enterprise has.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I should have pointed out during the clip, Kirk does try to ask why they feel this way, and he was cut off.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's completely ignorant and doesn't care what they think. He just, when he tried to ask, he wasn't allowed to.
Sure. Eilborn is now in the reverse position of offering Kirk protection as he cannot escape. Something that I think clearly irritates Kirk.
Yes, because Trefane's telling them that the Klingons are approaching the Citadel and they're well armed.
Yeah, hundreds of them.
And Kirk, again, he asks, how do you know this? And he's not giving an answer.
Yeah, he's not happy.
Eilborn just says he's intuitive.
And he's even more displeased at Spock stating the obvious. Being trapped in the middle of a Klingon occupation is not a pleasant prospect.
Not ideal. Sub-perfect conditions.
Captain's log 3201.7. They have been given native clothing in the hope of blending in.
At this stage, we're still in the council chambers, and Spock and Kirk notice that their uniforms are not all that's been removed.
No, their weapons are gone, as violence is not permitted. Eilborn remarks that Kirk can pass off as an Organian, but that Spock poses a problem, as we heard at the top of the podcast.
Yes, he proposes that he pretend to be a Vulcan trader.
Yeah, a solution that Spock seems satisfied with. He doesn't have a problem.
Yeah.
Thinks it just might work.
Seems to fit in.
The elders claim that they will continue as before and have nothing to fear, but Kirk tells them that they've got a lot to learn and they will do so the hard way. Again, it's this attitude, isn't it? This superiority.
Well, he's trying to give them the benefit of his experience. He just doesn't realise what situation he's actually in.
But see, that's the thing. If we consider what Kirk and the Enterprise know about the universe and all of the experience we've seen, it'd be different if it was us on Earth.
Okay.
But there's no reasonable expectation that there could be a superior race.
Yeah, but from his point of view, this is a species that hasn't left its own planet. It doesn't know what's out there. It only knows what's come to them. So why would it know what the Klingons are like?
Yeah, sure. At this point, a Klingon enters with 2 armed goons and confidently surveys the room before announcing himself as Kur, the military governor of Argania. It didn't take him long.
No, that's his official title, apparently.
He wants to know who Kirk is and what's he told by Eilborn.
This is Baronar, one of their leading citizens, whatever that means.
Yeah, just a good upstanding citizen, someone who contributes to society.
Spock uses a special codename, Spock, a local Vulcan trader who deals in Kevas and Trillium.
Have we heard about that before?
No.
Okay, will we hear about it again?
Probably.
Fair enough. I think Kur wants to know why Kirk isn't smelling like every other idiot on the planet.
Yes, he is. And he's also sceptical of Spock's cover story and has him dragged off.
Yeah, he thinks he may be a spy for the Federation.
Yeah, because the Vulcans are part of the Federation.
Yeah, okay.
I think he seems impressed that Baronar is less meek than the other Organians.
Without a doubt, this is where the respect starts. I think someone standing up to him and showing a bit of gumption is an attribute that's valued.
Particularly given the contrast with everybody else.
Yeah. Kur asks if Kirk welcomes him and replies that there is nothing he can do about it, which, as we say, pleases him. He appreciates good, honest hatred.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
It works for us.
Before he lays out the situation they are in and describes what is expected.
You are now subjects of the Klingon Empire. You will find there are many rules and regulations. They will be posted. Violation of the smallest of them will be punished by death.
We shall obey your regulations, Commander.
You disapprove, Barona.
You need my approval.
I need your obedience. Nothing more. Will I have it?
You seem to be in command.
Yes, I am. I shall need a representative from among you. Liaison between the forces of the occupation and the civil population. Smile and smile. I don't trust men who smile too much. You, Baroner, you're the man.
Me? I don't want the job.
Have I asked whether or not you want it? We Klingons have a reputation for ruthlessness. You will find that it is deserved. Should one Klingon soldier be killed, 1,000 Organians will die. I will have order. Is that clear?
Commander, I assure you, our people want nothing but peace. We shall cause you no trouble.
I'm sure you will not.
He's not messing around there, is he?
No, he's got a plan of action. Good to see.
Mm-hmm.
Efficient.
You wouldn't want to mess with him.
No.
But I think he's open and honest. He says, here's what I'm going to do. Here's a punishment. Here's the retribution that will be meted out if you disobey.
No great areas.
No, that's fair. That's all you can ask for.
Yep.
He then orders Spock to be taken to the examination room and for Kirk to go with him for instruction on his duties.
Yes, Kirk wants to know what's going to happen to Spock, and he's told that if he's lying, then he'll be killed, and if he's not lying, then he may find that his business has taken a turn for the worse.
Okay, neither are great.
No, not good options.
So as Spock is removed, Kur notes that Kirk does not like to be pushed physically, and considers he may well be a man that he can deal with, which I think is just an extension of what we discussed in terms of the respect.
Yeah, we've very quickly established all the relationships between the key characters here.
Yeah. He's very charismatic, Kur.
I like him.
Yeah. Again, I had a little glance. I thought this would be a character which was maybe recurring, and he may be in 5 or 6 episodes, but no.
He was meant to be, but the actor was unavailable, so they just made up new Klingons for other episodes.
Ah, okay. So there are more Klingons.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't think in this season, but in the future, if we ever do season 2.
Would you say the Klingons are the main baddies? It's the principal ones?
Yeah, I think they recur more than, for example, the Romulans because they're cheaper.
Okay.
They don't have as much makeup or costuming.
Yeah. Certainly cheaper than the Gorn.
Yes. Also, they've got some good stories.
At the castle, Kur is reading out his new laws to Kirk on public gatherings and information dissemination before Spock is brought in, and they are told that he has apparently been truthful with his claims.
Yes, they found this out using a mind sifter.
Or a mind
probe.
Something else, a mind bender, no.
Mind sifter is what you call it.
He calls it 2 things.
Mind probe, I think.
A mind ripper.
Mind ripper. Okay.
Yeah.
Or Jack for short.
Yeah. Apparently this can record every thought. That could be awkward.
It seems quite aggressive.
Quite embarrassing, potentially.
Yeah. Anyhow.
The downside of that is what?
You might learn things you don't want to know.
No. Yeah, that's true. Oh, he doesn't like me. He thinks I've got a fat ass.
What do you mean you don't like my face?
No, the downside is that the mind is permanently emptied when used in full force.
Yes, leaving the subject in a vegetative state.
Spock, however, confirms that he is all right, although the experience was interesting.
Yes.
He's then allowed to leave, but is told that he'll be under constant scrutiny.
Not true.
That's not true at all. But he acts appropriately subservient and exits.
He does. Kirk, meanwhile, is sent back to the council and warned to keep the people in order or he will be killed too.
Again, he's got his instructions. Can't complain if he ends up dead.
Actually, fair.
Outside, Kirk has a chat to Spock about this mind.
I presume this is sometime later.
I think they've just both left.
And just gone outside and he's not being watched at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of these things, if you say you're going to be watched, you don't have to watch them because they're always suspicious
that they're being watched.
Yeah.
Worked well for the Stasi.
It's a bit like God, isn't it? If someone tells you,
He's always watching.
back in the day, yeah, well, that was it, wasn't it? Back in the day. Oh yeah, there's God, he can see everything.
You better confess.
Yeah. Oh no.
Anyhow, yes, Kirk is assured that Spock's survival of the Mind Sifter is down to his strong mental disciplines after years of training.
He then has to quickly step in to prevent Kirk beating in the head of an aggressive Klingon and focus him on the job at hand.
Yeah, we learn very quickly that Spock has no love for these Organians.
Yeah, he says that himself quite explicitly. However, he does want to show them that they need to fight back. But Spock claims that talking has achieved little so far, and a direct approach may be more effective.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's Spock who's got no love for the Organians. He wants to proceed with Kirk's plan and assumes there will be no help coming from the natives. Anyway, they discuss a munitions dump that they happen to have walked past.
Yeah, and they agree that a visit to it at night time is in order. So, later, under cloak of darkness, they knock out a guard, but they don't take his weapon.
No.
Why not?
They've knocked him out.
Yeah, but they've not got any weapons. Why would he not take his from him?
Well, that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to break in anywhere or do anything like that.
You don't think that he might be quite useful to have a weapon on you?
Well, if they were starting some kind of underground resistance, maybe, but it's just a one-off show of force, isn't it?
Anyway, they reach the dump where they find some sonic grenades and crates of explosives, which they combine to make an almighty firework display.
Yeah, apparently it's chemical explosives.
Yeah, there's a timer on it. Why don't they wait until they get back to their room or whatever? They effectively set off within seconds of being there.
Yes.
It's not great, is it?
I expected the Klingons to show up and arrest them.
Yeah.
But no, apparently they get away with it. Because the next thing we see is Kirk explaining himself to Aelborn.
Yeah, they're at the council chambers. And he acknowledges with pride that he did indeed cause the explosion. Just to show them they can fight back.
I think they probably would have been wise prior to this point in the episode showing some Organian suffering.
Well, this is an issue I have with this action specifically. They were warned that should one Klingon die, 1,000 Organians would be executed in an act of revenge.
That's true.
Now they've just blown up this munitions dump. There's no way that they could guarantee that a Klingon wouldn't have died.
Or that they would just execute folk anyway.
Yes, for the very act of it. They potentially risked thousands of lives here.
Yeah, to make a point that didn't need making.
No, not great.
Yeah, I do think they kind of undersell the oppression of the Klingon, what would you put it, regime.
Yes, I think without a doubt, you have, as you said earlier, you've got to see a beating. You've got to see people being dragged away, shouting and screaming, being separated from their families, that type of thing.
All we see of the Organians is the council who are carrying on as normal and don't have any problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. They've not been made to look as bad as what I think you're meant to think they are.
I suppose it's what you can show at certain times of the day.
No, but you can still indicate it, can't you?
Like
say, someone being a woman been taken or kids been taken from the family or whatever would do it.
Yeah, screaming of some kind. Yeah,
in pain, blood, being tortured.
Yeah, amputations.
Yeah, that type of thing.
Yeah, just wholesome fare.
However, the Organians are not impressed with the disruptive tactics and beg them not to do anything like it again. Rightly so. You could have had thousands of us killed.
Exactly. Kirk cruelly notes that he understands the Organians don't have the spines to fight for their loved ones.
Yeah. Again.
He's assuming that they have a concept of love.
That's true.
They just all seem quite
assuming
indifferent.
an awful lot
Maybe
of
the
things.
entire society is just everyone's indifferent to everybody else.
Possibly. It's not the craziest thing you would have seen.
No.
However, as this is taking place, we see a transmitter. It's not very discreet. Who installed this?
The Klingons.
It's on the wall.
Yeah.
It's like an alarm.
Yeah.
And we cut to a smiling Kur who is clearly listening in.
Yes, and doesn't seem that surprised, I don't think.
No, and predictably, it results in Kur and his guards making an appearance where he tells Kirk he doesn't understand the difference between courage and foolhardiness. I think it's a fair point.
Yep, and Aelborn is told by Kur and the gang that Kirk is going to be killed once his mind has been scanned.
Airborne tries to prevent this by revealing who Kirk is, which surprises and delights Kure, who has heard of him and the ship, and therefore guesses also who Spock is. Now, when Airborne revealed this, I genuinely think it was the intentions were for the best. But Kirk in this episode seems to think he was grassed in. He was snitched on.
He feels, he's been betrayed by someone who helped him hide in the first place.
Yeah.
But Airborne at times displays an almost simplistic aversion to violence. It's like, any act I can do that will prevent violence being done to somebody else.
Yeah, sometimes you need a good beating.
Yeah.
Never done me any harm.
This is the other thing. So we must assume that there isn't any violence being done by the Klingons, otherwise Airborne would be stopping it.
Yes.
Or is he allowing the Klingons to believe they're being violent to Organians who don't actually notice it?
I think the Klingons are a firm but fair people.
So there isn't any actual violence or oppression?
No, they've been threatened with it, but the Organians aren't going to do anything, are they? So there'd be there's no need for violence.
Well then, what's the problem?
There's no problem. That's the point. Everyone's cool apart from Kirk.
Yeah.
He wants people to start fighting and blowing things up.
Yeah, to fight back for their freedom.
Yeah.
Which they don't value.
No.
But then Kirk also wants the Klingons off the planet, so he's got his own goals.
That's true.
Kerr seems to be disgusted by Airborne's choice to sell Kirk out here.
Yeah, that's true. I think he doesn't think it's fair. And he mentions that he'd hoped to meet Kirk in battle, but grins as he accepts that it's now unlikely.
Kirk says he has no intention of dying for someone who would betray him like this.
Yeah, I think that's a bit harsh. But it's a sentiment that Kure certainly agrees with. He then orders Spock to be locked up and Kirk to be removed to his office for a talk before he does what must be done. So we're in the office. Kirk refuses the offer of a drink and asks what he wants. Kore responds by saying, "A great deal, but first he wants to talk. Just talk."
Do you think I'm going to sit here and just talk with the enemy?
You'll talk either here, now, voluntarily, or under our mind scanner. The fact is, Captain, I have a great admiration for your Starfleet. A remarkable instrument. And I must confess to a certain admiration for you. I know, of course, that it was you who destroyed our supplies last night.
Something was destroyed? Nothing inconsequential, I hope.
Hardly. They were quite important to us, but they can be replaced. You of the Federation, you are much like us.
We're nothing like you. We're a democratic body.
Come now, Captain, I'm not referring to minor ideological differences. I mean that we are similar as a species. Here we are on a planet of sheep, tigers, predators, hunters, killers. And it is precisely that which makes us great. And there is a universe to be taken.
It's a very large universe, Commander, full of people who don't like the Klingons.
Excellent. Then it shall be a matter of testing each other's wills and power. Survival must be earned, Captain. Tell me about the dispersal of your Starfleet.
I think Kirk's response to that is to tell him to go climb a tree.
It is, which is an unusual. I've not heard of that before.
No, I think it's a replacement for a common expletive.
F off.
Or go F yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he is reminded he can get this information via the scanner, although it would result in little being left of the inside of his head.
Yes, it would turn his brain to mush.
He then asks about Spock and his ability to block the scanner, and decides to find out how he's managed to circumvent it by drastic measures.
He's going to dissect him.
Not sure if that would tell you, would it?
No, I think he's just going to kill him. He's just threatening Kirk with the death of his friend. But the Klingons aren't the smartest, are they?
Oh no, they're definitely not, no.
Because their next decision is to give Kirk and Spock 12 hours together in a cell.
A good old James Bond baddie.
Yeah. And that's where we go.
Yes, in this room, I think it's a reused set here. I can't remember what episode, but I recognised it.
Okay, there's at least one set here is reused from the cage, but I think that's out in exterior.
Right. No, it's something else.
Not sure about the cell. Anyhow.
Some time's passed after Kirk has been thrown inside when Spock informs him that they now have just under 7 hours remaining.
They are surprised to receive a visitor.
Yeah, a casual Ileborn saunters in and asks them if they're ready to go.
Yeah. I think Kirk's a bit dubious. Because first of all, Ileborn's sold him out. And now he's apparently overcome all of the Klingons to get to the cell to free them.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of matter-of-factly states that he cannot permit violence to befall them, and so is going to take them away. But, yeah, they've got no choice, I suppose, but to trust him. I mean, what is the alternative?
Even if they don't trust him, they have to leave. They can't just sit in the cell.
Yeah. So they're led back to the council chambers where the other elders are. I think he insists that they won't be found here. There's no chance. No, they would never look here.
Kirk doesn't believe that's true at all.
Yeah. I think Kirk, who should be grateful, sort of sneers at them that, this is a setup, you've taken this. Yeah. It doesn't make sense, but because the Klingons already had them in a cell, you can't go and rescue someone from the captor cell and then say, we won't give them back to you. It doesn't, what's the point in that?
Well, Kirk thinks they're waiting for a ransom to be posted.
Right.
They'll claim it.
Yeah, because everything that the Organians have done so far would suggest that's the type of people they are.
Yeah. Ileborn says once again that Kirk simply doesn't understand them.
Yeah, cause I think Kirk asked about the guards who were stationed outside, and that's dismissed. Never mind the guards.
Yeah, he's poo-pooed. In Kur's office, he's advised by a badly acting colleague that the Federation prisoners have escaped.
Yeah, and the guards definitely weren't responsible. That's like, my men, I can assure you, they were there the whole time.
Didn't see anything.
They did not sleep. They did not go for a cigarette.
He was there when we did the check-in at night last night, and now it's just a Bible and a poster on the wall, and he's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. Kur accepts this.
He does.
Gullible.
Anyhow, he asks for Special Order 4 to be implemented.
Oh, doesn't sound good.
No, at least it's not Order 1. Oh. No, hang on. Is Special Order 4 not the Destroy the Whole Planet order?
Yeah, that's General Order.
That's General Order 4. A key distinction. Do not get them mixed up under any circumstances. Back
in the chambers, Kirk is still annoyed at the constant smiling of the elders and wants to know how and why he is now free. I think he again insults them, calling them idiots.
He says they have an idiotic placidity.
I mean, really?
Spock's got questions as well, though. It's not just Kirk who's upset here.
What does he want to know?
Well, nothing specific.
Okay.
He's just generally unhappy.
They then hear a broadcast from Kur.
They do. He's killed 200 Organians and he's going to kill 200 more in 2 hours, and then 200 more and then 200 more until his prisoners are returned.
A lot of killing, basically.
Yes. Kirk is disgusted, and it's exacerbated by Ileborn's seeming indifference.
And I think it causes Kirk to threaten Ileborn with the violence that he claims to hate. And this seems to work.
Yeah. Well, Kirk and Spock, deciding it's up to them to resolve the matter, now want their phasers back.
Yeah, so after a little consultation between each other, the elders agree to this.
Yeah, they say they might as well, I think.
Yeah. It's not very well hidden. He's like, okay, then it's just over there in that cupboard.
In that cupboard. Kirk tells them that he has no love for their culture, but he's going to go out there, he's going to leave it all in the field, he's going to die for them to show that there are things worth dying for.
Yeah, he's just tying himself in knots now, isn't he?
And also, they haven't taken any of his earlier lessons. Why would he do this? Not just leave?
No.
Anyhow.
Anyway, when they've left, the elders shake their heads at them, but concede that they're brilliant, though doomed. I don't think they are brilliant.
I don't think he says they're brilliant, he says they're brave.
Okay, well, brave, yeah, that would make more sense.
Yes.
They're not brave, but are they? They're stupid.
Foolhardy.
Yeah. However, they chat amongst themselves, don't they?
They do, and Trefane says there's going to be great violence that night.
Which they can't allow.
They can't allow it. Although it might be quite challenging for them to intervene.
Yeah.
Anyway, outside at night, Spock says that he and Kirk have a chance in the region of 7,824.7 to 1 of surviving the events that are to follow.
Yeah, although it's difficult for him to be precise about that number.
Yeah.
So roughly.
Yeah, Kirk thinks that is fairly precise.
I quite like that little exchange. Anyway, phasers are set to stun, as apparently they're only after the top dog, but will kill if necessary. They've not done this before. I mean, this is an army. It doesn't matter if they're not the top dog. You shouldn't just be Set this to full blast.
No, the phasers are always set to stun.
Not when they're in this situation, they're not.
Always on stun.
Nah, I wouldn't be doing that.
Every monster they try
Shoot.
it on stun first.
Shoot to kill.
Anyhow, they're going after Kerr.
They easily take out the 2 guards outside before rushing up and into the building.
The Organians, meanwhile, in the council chamber, note that events have begun and they join hands and start meditating.
That seems to be their thing.
Kerr is told that the prisoners have not been handed over by an underling, and the Klingons generally don't understand why the Organians are unconcerned with their threats.
But in any case, Kerr orders 200 of them to be rounded up, obviously to be executed.
He laments being in charge of sheep.
So this underling leaves to gather up the 200, and as he does, Kirk grabs him from behind and he chokes him with a rope, forcing him to tell him where Kerr's office is and admit to the hostage situation.
Yes, and is then nerve-pinched by Spock,
who now admits that the odds of success for them have reduced to a more palatable 7,000 to 1.
I think they've dipped under 7,000 to 1.
Well, there you go.
Which makes Kirk seem a bit more satisfied.
Yeah, certainly heading in the right direction.
Yeah. In Kerr's office, Kirk and Spock show up and disarm him. But he has news for them.
What's that?
The Federation fleet is on the way and the battle is about to be joined, and perhaps they should all just wait and see how it goes.
Well, I think Kirk describes it as checkmate. At least it wasn't Spock describing it that way, because as we know, he's garbage at chess.
He is, you may not understand.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did you mention, I think that Kerr suggests that they wait to see what the outcome of this battle is before Kirk kills him. But this seems almost to disappoint him when Kirk reveals that he doesn't intend to kill him unless it's necessary.
Sentimentality, mercy, the emotions of peace. Your weakness, Captain Kirk. The Klingon Empire shall win. Think of it. As we sit here in space above us, the destiny of the galaxy will be decided for the next 10,000 years. Can I offer you a drink? We can toast the victory of the Klingon fleet.
You may be premature. There are many possibilities.
Today we conquer. Though if someday we are defeated, well, war has its fortunes, good and bad. Do you know why we are so strong? Because we are a unit. Each of us is part of the greater whole, always under surveillance. Even a commander like myself, always under surveillance, Captain. If you will note. Come on, Spock!
Yes, Kerr has clearly been hinting there to Kirk that I've got more guys and they're on their way.
Certainly are. They burst in and are ordered to shoot, but there is a problem.
Yes, they have to drop their weapons because they've become incredibly hot.
Too hot to handle. Even
hand-to-hand combat has become physically painful.
Yeah, and this effect we see also takes place on the Enterprise.
Yeah, a really brief shot of the bridge of the Enterprise with everyone leaping away from their consoles.
So with everyone now in a state of confusion, Eilborn and Trefane enter.
I think it's Claymere.
Is it?
Yeah, Trefane stayed behind.
Okay. And they explain they are behind what's happened as they cannot allow them to harm themselves by causing any weapons to radiate at 350 degrees.
Kirk gets confirmation of this from Sulu, and Kerr notes that his fleet too is helpless.
Yeah, it's not just heated up, it's lost all power.
Yes, Eilborn is forcing this war to end. He says he is present here, but also on Earth and on Kronos, the Klingon homeworld.
Yeah. Now, at this point, this is the sort of crux of the issue I have. Kirk, with no hint of self-awareness, demands to know what gives him the right to stop a war.
He says it's a legitimate grievance. The Federation are entitled to fight.
I'm sorry, I'm just not accepting this. It's an absolute cheek. What gives you the right? He's constant, every other week, he's forcing his own views and sensibilities and beliefs on other civilizations. He's trying to change them, to mould them into what he thinks they should be like. He cannot accept lack of progress. He thinks that's be on it. I'm sorry, I just cannot. But now he's saying, well, what gives you the right? Yes, exactly, Kirk. What gives you the right?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Kerr is similarly aggrieved.
Yeah, he says it's none of their business.
And also, Kirk doesn't understand why the Organians are handling this on a neutral basis when over 200 of their people were killed by the Klingons.
True.
But Aelborn says that's not true.
Not interested, calmly states that unless both agree to a ceasefire, then all the resources will be immobilised. So an enraged Kirk and Kerr argue their own legitimacy.
Yeah, but going back to the earlier point about the 200 deaths, Claymore says that nobody has died. Nobody's died
Is that
here.
Claymore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody's died here for thousands of years, which again is a bit of a clue to what's going on. Kirk and Kerr continue their rants,
yeah,
you could put it.
Yeah, but again, I like this. They are told that their interference in others' affairs is disgusting, and therefore their military has been paralysed. And I think that sums up a lot of things. I think that's also hinting at a bigger point, or trying to make a bigger point.
You're on the Organian side here?
Yeah.
Or you think this is a Vietnam comparison?
Well, I think both.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely am. You don't get involved in this sort of stuff. You're having your own yeah. I mean, there certainly are a number of examples in the real world where militaries have, in many cases, possibly legitimately trying to establish bases to fight the perceived bad guys. But it's a situation, no matter where you're going and what you're doing, if you get in with a military force and try to occupy pieces of land, the locals aren't going to necessarily be happy.
No, probably not.
Especially if they're not at war directly.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they get forced into something. Aelborn tells Kirk and Kerr that they do not have the right to kill millions of innocent people, and that he foresees lasting peace eventually between the Federation and the Klingon Empire.
Yes, but it will take many millions of deaths before they become fast friends.
No doubt. Claymore and Aelborn at this agree that they must leave, as it's actually quite painful for them to take physical form.
Kirk is puzzled by the reference to people like them. I think obviously because he thought that
they were like them.
They were like them, yeah.
Yeah.
And he asks what this means. And he responds that they used to be humanoids like them, but advanced beyond the need for a physical presence.
Yeah, and at this they turn into little specks of light and vanish.
Oh, it's more than a little speck of light, it's a blinding light.
Yeah, and then it kind of shrinks down.
Yeah.
Itty bitty light.
Spock is fascinated by this.
As always.
And states that it is life, but nothing like what they know. Yeah, you're very good for pointing out the obvious there, Spock. Yeah.
And this whole civilization that they observed was just created for their benefit.
It compares the difference between themselves and the Organians to themselves and amoebas.
Yes, and Kirk and Kerr lament that there will not be a war.
Yeah, a glorious war.
Up on the bridge of the Enterprise, Spock wants to know why Kirk's so quiet.
Well, why is he quiet?
He's embarrassed.
Should be
mad. He's embarrassed for being mad.
Yep. Well, I think that's the point. He's seen the light here. He had so much battle fever on the go. Yeah. And I think he realises what he was turning into, and sometimes fighting in war is not the answer.
Yeah, and he says he was angry at the Organians for stopping a war that he didn't even want to happen in the first place. And Spock explains that the Organians took millions of years to evolve, but at least they beat the odds and they survived.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good analogy for Vietnam, as you, I think, earlier mentioned. There's lots of people who were involved who ended up part of this, but they didn't want to. They had no particular reason to fight, but they were told they had to. They were drafted, and they were brought into a situation that was out with their control, and they probably wish they hadn't been.
Yeah, no doubt. Kirk wraps it up by saying that he doesn't accept that they beat the odds. The Organians broke the game, essentially. Yeah.
Which is a fair point, I think.
Yeah. If not particularly profound.
No.
And that's it. Off to the next adventure.
Yeah. Very interesting episode.
It was.
Thoroughly enjoyable, actually.
I really enjoyed it as well. Yeah, it's got some good morsels to get your teeth into.
And a good antagonist.
Yes. Well,
A powerful one that was interesting, and one that you could see develop, certainly.
yeah, but not just powerful, but equivalent almost.
Yeah.
And it unresolved.
It was someone, I think I said earlier, it was someone who I wanted to see more of.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask, actually, it came up in that last scene that Kirk thought the humans were the most powerful people in the universe, and they were shown not to be. Does he forget about the Telosians, the Metrons, the Square of Gothos? I mean, how many of these people has he met?
Very good point. I mean, I think that this should not surprise him. He's experienced this before. He knows they're not the most sophisticated or advanced
It's like every time they meet someone like this, it's like, oh, well, that'll be that. We'll never see any of them like that again.
Yeah. And I think it is because we shouldn't give the Gene Roddenberry and the rest of them too much credit in terms of they're not building this universe. They haven't built this universe up front and then created stories within it. They're just...
Yeah, it's as piecemeal as they go along.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Sorry, I got the impression that Kerr being posted here was a punishment. He must have done something wrong.
Why?
Well, there was a scene where he says, let me just check my notes to get the exact words. He says it's bad enough being a general on Organia, but it's worse that I have to be a general in charge of sheep.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's not a position he's happy with. It's not a position where there's a battle. Klingons like the war. He talked about wanting to be engaged in war and a glorious battle. There's no glory for him sitting behind a desk.
Sure.
Being an administrative leader of a planet where no one resists. So I got the feeling perhaps this was not a reward for him. This is not a promoted post.
Yeah, but it might not be a punishment as such. It might just be it has to be done.
Someone has to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe. But from what we come to learn of the Klingons, I get the feeling it's maybe it could be not so much a punishment as a political appointment. Maybe someone who opposes him within the Klingon Empire is wanting him sidelined in some way.
Okay. You think it's someone being moved from being the Chancellor of the Executive to Minister without portfolio or something like that?
Sort of thing, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancashire.
Yeah, just go over there and keep out of the way. Okay.
I had a question about Kirk being a hypocrite, but you've obviously touched on that.
Massive hypocrite. Yeah, hugely hypocritical. I don't mind it. Like, it's not a criticism of the show or the episode.
No, but it's yet another in a line of very good episodes.
Yes.
So that's good. Hopefully it doesn't suddenly drop off terribly next week.
Okay. Are you trying to hint at something?
Well, just if you have a look at IMDb, see what you think about the star ratings.
Yeah, I don't always agree with those anyway.
8, 5, 8.
Yeah, but that could just be like little nerdy geeks because something's controversial in it.
Who knows? We'll find out.
Oh, that's time for Spock. That's not how. Nah, go on, mate.
Should we get some trivia, or have you got any more points to make?
No, I think I've made it myself perfectly clear.
This show originally aired on the 16th of March 1967. It was directed by John Newland, and this was his only Star Trek episode. He also directed shows like Peyton Place and Wonder Woman, and he died in 2000 at the age of 82. Gene Kuhn, I promised last week I would say more about him this week. He wrote the episode, the fourth of his 13 writing credits for the series. He's also principally a producer on the show, and he's considered by many people to be responsible for the more progressive elements of the storytelling. I think folk talk about being the heart and soul of Star Trek. He also wrote for Wagon Train, Bonanza and The Wild Wild West and produced 17 episodes of It Takes a Thief. But he sadly died prematurely in 1973 at the age of 49, just a week after being diagnosed with cancer. He of course created the Klingons, and his legacy and influence are felt not only in this show but all of its successors. John Colicos played Kor in his only original series appearance, but he would reprise the role in 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine. He was also a recurring villain in Battlestar Galactica, where he played Count Baltar. 21 episodes of that.
Found his niche or his niche.
And in the 1980 movie The Changeling, he played Captain DeWitt. And
so, what movie?
The Changeling from 1980.
Alright, not the Angelina Jolie movie?
No.
Okay.
With 31 years between his first and last appearance as Kerr, he is the second longest running actor to play a single character behind only
Montalban?
Leonard Nimoy.
Alright. Okay.
Montalban was 66 or 67 to 82. It's nowhere near as long.
No, it's not. You do the math.
Exactly. Leonard Nimoy had about 86 years of playing Spock. He's been in it right up to about 2012 from 66. Anyhow, Colicos died in 2000 at the age of 71. John Abbott played Aelborn. His acting career started in 1936.
With Costello?
Yes. by which time he was already in his 30s, so he's not one of those folk who just look older on the screen. He only appeared in this one episode of Star Trek, but he also showed up in shows like Macmillan and Wife and Lost in Space, as well as voicing the wolf in Disney's original animated Jungle Book. He died in 1996 at the age of 90.
Can't complain.
Peter Brocco played Claymere, who showed up towards the end there with Elborn. This was his only Star Trek role, but he also appeared in shows like Bewitched, and he was in Spartacus and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He died in 1992 at the age of 89. David Hilary Hughes played Trefane, the one with the predictive power. He had an uncredited role in Mary Poppins, but otherwise did very little acting and died in 1974 at the age of 72.
What was his uncredited role?
I don't know, Man.
Okay.
Man 2.
Sure.
It's on IMDb, you can look it up yourself.
Yeah.
Victor Lundan played the Klingon deputy that didn't act very well. He only had this one Star Trek role, but he had 2 recurring characters in the original Batman series and later appeared in Babylon 5. He died in 2013 at the age of 83. Walt Davis and George Sawaya played Klingon guards. Davis was close to being our Columbo connection this week, having appeared in an episode of Mrs. Columbo in 1979, but he was trumped by Sawaya, who showed up in 2 episodes of The Real Thing.
Right. Close, but no cigar.
No cigar. 1972's Short Fuse, talking of cigars, and a case of immunity in 1975. This was the third of Davis' 3 Star Trek appearances and the second of Sawaya's 3, although the only one for which he received a credit. Davis died in 1981 at the age of 52, and Sawaya died in 2003 when he was 80. A little bit of trivia: Klingons took their name from Bob Klingon, a friend of Gene Roddenberry. The title of the episode comes from Charles Dickens' Nicholas Nickleby. Not only, we talked earlier about saving money on Scotty, wasn't in command, saved a lot of money but not having McCoy in this episode. I think it's the last time he doesn't appear.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It's also the last episode the word Vulcanian gets used.
Is it?
Both Vulcan and Vulcanian were used in this one.
When does Ahura get more involved? She doesn't do anything.
Well, after her protest at the end of season 1, probably.
Right. Okay.
In terms of international titles, everyone's favourite segment of the show, the French go with Les Arbitres du Cosmos, the referees of the cosmos. The Germans opt for Kampf Organia, Battle for Organia. And in Japan, it was known as Kuringon Teikoku no Shinryaku, Invasion of the Klingon Empire.
Yeah, they're all fine.
Next week is the 27th episode of Season 1, The Alternative Factor, and we hope that goes okay.
We certainly do.
In the meantime, get us on social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and if you go to StarTrekPodcast.com, there's a post up for each episode where you can share your thoughts, feelings, views and whatever else, and we hope you share your love of this podcast with your Star Trek loving friends. If you get the opportunity, that would be very much appreciated.
It would. Until then,
cheerio.
bye bye.